I can't forgive my sister after she refused to help me when I was about to become homeless. My sister from a young age has had only one person to rely on, and that person was me. We come from a broken family with one parent that was only around till I was 5, and the other who was stuck in a cycle of addiction. Because of our situation, I grew up very quickly and shielded her from as much as I could. She obviously was aware of what was going on, but she was not in the crosshair. I started with stealing from our mother to make sure we had food and bills were paid. I got a part-time job at 13 because we couldn't rely on our mother, and when I graduated, I immediately got 2 jobs and we moved out. I had to push my sister through high school. She wasn't an easy teen for obvious reasons. On top of going month to month, trying to get as much money together to pay our bills. At 19, she finally graduated after being held back a year. She changed her tune a lot, and she started working as well, and had her own place when she was 21. I finally got a shot to do something for myself and got a degree. As a result, I got a much better job, but unfortunately that was right before the pandemic hit. So I pretty much went from hired to fired as I was a new hire. Now the reason I am saying all that is not to pat myself on the back, but to stress why my reaction is the way it is. I was out of work, on the brink of losing my apartment, and only had one person who I expected I could turn to: my sister. She was recently married, still lives obviously, with her husband, so I asked if I could stay a few weeks, at most a few months, until I got a new job. It was a no. I was taken aback, but it remained to be a no. A week or 2 later, I was kicked out of my apartment. I asked again, and it was a no. At this point, I am homeless, and the only reason I didn't end up sleeping on the damn street was because I could crash at a few friends until I got a temporary job. I rented a room with a bunch of roommates for a while, eventually got a job in my field again, and am now doing fine. That said, I have not spoken to my sister since. She has called, messaged, banged on my door, sent crying voice messages, apologized dozens of times, tried to explain herself, tried going to my job, tried going to friends, everything. I haven't said a word to her. It's been over a year now. She recently had a child, and she is still desperately trying to reach out. She claims her husband refused to let me stay. He even reached out several times to beg me to reach out. But to me, the one time I need her, she basically tells me to F myself. I feel like it was the last push I needed to just end that chapter of my life. I feel bad, but just not bad enough, I guess. Even my friends and my girlfriend are on my case that I should forgive her, and that they understood it first, but now think I'm being an asshole. What would you guys do? Top comments. Tell your friends and girlfriend that only you get to decide when you're ready to talk to your sister, that it's not their place nor their business to try to force you into an interaction that you aren't emotionally ready for. And if they care about you at all, they will shut the fuck up and let you do things when you're ready to do them. I'd send your sister one message telling her that you aren't closing the door on ever having a relationship with her, but you need her to back off and give you the time and space to work through your feelings of betrayal, that you will reach out to her when and if you are ready to, and not a minute before, and the more she pushes, the less you want to be around her. Then get into counseling to work through your feelings. Decide how much of a relationship with her you can handle emotionally, and then proceed from there. If your GF and friends keep pushing, then they're only doing so for their own selfish purposes rather than out of concern for you, and you need to shut them down hard. Update. So I had a huge amount of people inquiring as to what ended up happening and asking me to make an update should anything happen, and while I wasn't sure if I would, or even should I eventually decided to just go ahead and do it. Let me start by apologizing to the people who commented on my post. I made my post, and it didn't seem to gain much traction at all, so I more or less stopped looking at it for about a day. I think only to figure out the next day that I had gotten a lot of comments. Unfortunately, when I decided to reply to a lot of the comments I've been reading, I realized that this subreddit locks the comments after a certain amount of comments have been made or karma has been reached. I am afraid I was not aware of this admittedly very odd rule, so that's on me. I did end up reading most comments and would like to thank everyone offering advice or just saying something supportive. First, to answer a couple of questions that I was unable to answer, along with addressing some incorrect comments in the previous post, yet I saw asked quite a few times. 1. The first few no's were without reasonable explanation. I was not aware of her given reason that her husband was not okay with it until later. 2. She did not know she was pregnant when she declined, and most of it happened before she would have even been pregnant in the first place. I mean, most of this took place over a year ago. I even put that in the post, so I'm not sure how that math would even work. 3. I'm not an anti-vaxxer or dirty or something. There were quite a few comments that theorized this would be the case for her refusal. I got my 2 vaccination shots the moment I could them. And while my personal hygiene is not exactly anyone's business, I shower once a day, and my apartment is spotless. For a lot of advice and comments seem to be from the perspective of functional families with a functional family structure. That is not the case here. The primary reason I am so gutted about this entire situation is exactly that this isn't a case of, well, I don't want my cousin to stay in my house, he can stay somewhere else. This is a case of me having sacrificed my entire youth and a significant portion of my early adult life for someone that I played no part in creating or have any parental responsibility for, and the first and only time I ever asked her to do something for me, as the only person I could reasonably fall back on, and her not doing that. That's more than a familial spat. That is a straight-up betrayal. That's also an answer to the people saying that she owes me nothing because I chose to be a parent. Anyway, with that out of the way, I decided to follow some advice given by several people. I told my girlfriend and the friends who involved themselves or were involved by my sister to back off or to lose my number. They do not understand my perspective, and they likely never will, and I need to get that through my head, as I have a tendency to talk about my life as if it is a standard. But it is a standard only to me. Luckily, most people don't go through any of that. I obviously had a longer and face-to-face conversation with my GF and with individual close friends, but it boils down to that. One friend kept pestering me about it, and I ended up dropping him as a friend. But my GF was apologetic, and most friends were either apologetic or said they'd drop it. I ended up writing a long email to my sister, and while I will not copy and paste the entire thing here, as it contains a lot of personal information and far more horrible stuff that I am unsure will even be allowed on a sub like this, it more or less boiled down to me explaining to her how her refusal to take me in for what ended up being a few weeks made me feel, and I detailed a long list of things I'd done to take care of her. I ended up finishing my email telling her that even if I take her version of the story as truth, and her husband is the cause of me not being allowed to stay, that it is entirely irrelevant to me, because that just means she didn't fight for me at all. I also informed her I have no interest in meeting her child as of this moment, and I have no interest in reconnecting with her, and if that changes in the future, I will be the one to contact her. I told her to let this be a lesson to her, as it has been a painful lesson to me. Boiled down, I have decided to move on and keep the door on the tiniest of cracks. She has responded a lot since that moment. She seems unable to accept it, but I have not responded since. I don't have anything else to tell you, I am afraid, and since the sub only allows one update, well, it is what it is. Again, thank you all for taking the time to respond to my post, and thank you all for your insightful replies. Top comments and Oop reply. Wow, I totally get why you would feel not only betrayed, but also extremely hurt. I think it is crazy that people would sum it up to your sister doesn't owe you anything. You expect your sibling to be there for you. Period. My advice is to seek therapy to help you get over the things that happened in the past. You are a traumatized person, and you need to navigate your feelings and should do it with a professional. That is if you haven't already. Oop reply. Had the situation been different, I might imagine I would have reacted differently. But since the situation is what it is, I guess I do more or less feel like she owes me to an extent. But as I said, you gotta view that in the whole picture. I did not owe her so much of my life and energy either, but I still did it. That's how she should have been towards me. Comment 2. The fact she's still pestering you despite you clearly telling her that you don't want that says a lot about who she is as a person. And what it says is that she's selfish and entitled and only cares about herself and what she wants, in which case you're better off never reestablishing contact, because she would only use that opening to try to get something from you. If you haven't blocked her everywhere already, do so. If she shows up in person ever again, give her one warning that if she doesn't leave, or if she comes back, you will call the police and have her officially trespass from your property, and will be pursuing a restraining order against her, because she is harassing you. Oop reply. I wouldn't necessarily view her as a person who just wants stuff from others. It would be an unfair characterization. For example, a lot of people were saying she probably just wants free babysitting, which I really doubt in general. That said, she is blocked pretty much everywhere apart from my personal mail, which is what I refer to as the tiny opening. Unfortunately, that's what she is using to bombard me with mails, so I may end up blocking her there too. If it was unclear, however, I am certainly not thinking of reestablishing anything anytime soon, talking years here. More comment by Oop. That's another part of the puzzle here. I do feel like seeing her in person and talking to her is essentially relenting to her consistent attempts to contact me, which is something I really do not want to do for 2 reasons. 1. It sets a precedent in terms that enough consistent contacting, bothering, and stalking will force me to forgive her. 2. I simply don't feel like she deserves to be forgiven, at least not yet, and an in-person talk may mean I am swayed to forgive her, which sets another precedent. At this point, however, she shouldn't have to worry about whether I would have done the same. It is an irrelevant question now. If right now she got to my door and had nowhere else to go, I'd probably answer with a simple no.